And I'd like to introduce our special guest. It is Austie Rollinson. Austie is the Senior Director of Putter R&D for Scotty Cameron Putters. So, Austie, thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking the time. I know all of us here at Second Swing are just so excited about this lineup of putters. So, yeah, thank you for joining us, and I hope everything's going well for you here so far in 2024.
It's going great. We've had a great reception to the new Phantom line, and it's going to be a great time to be able to talk to you and your viewers about them.
Yeah, we've had a ton of, well, first of all, great feedback from the fitters as well, doing putter fittings in our stores. Can't say enough great things about that. You know, we'll talk about all the different tech and, you know, the new look and some of the things that you and the team have implemented into this putter series. But I got to ask right away, what was kind of, you know, as we maybe kind of tease a little bit of what we're going to talk about today, what was kind of your favorite part about working with Scotty and working with the team and then developing this new lineup of Phantom 2024 putters?
I think the most fun part, this is really the first project I started here about 2 years ago, and this was the first project that Scotty and I really worked on together, you know, starting back in January of 2022 when I arrived. And I think it's just that the collaboration part of it. I think I love collaborating with great designers. I've been able to do that in my career so far, and it was great to be able to do it with Scotty, with someone who I've admired for a number of years from another company, but to be able to work with him on these designs was a career highlight.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds, I mean, that's kind of like the goal, right? I mean, you think of that name, Scotty Cameron, and it's an iconic name in our sport and in our game. And so it sounds like quite an experience. And obviously you guys have delivered some excellent products here to talk about. So let's kind of dive right into some of those tech features and what really is driving the performance of these Phantom 2024 putters. And so, you know, I've got a couple models here with me that we can discuss here. But first of all, I just wanted to get your feedback on the look and what kind of, because that's kind of, I know a big push for you guys is the new faster look to the Phantom 2024 putters. So can you kind of talk about what went into that and, you know, what the purpose is of this new look?
Well, faster is a perfect word to use because that's the word that Scotty used with me, that he really wanted these putters to have a fast, streamlined look. That imagery is really powerful, I think, in golf and in putters. It gives you a lot of confidence looking at something that's kind of fast. And so, number one, that was the word he used for me. And the other aspect he really wanted to focus on was alignment in these designs. So, when designing mallet putters, that's a big reason why people move to mallets, is to be able to get something that's easier for them to align. And with all the Phantom models, that's something we wanted to design into these. And so the new feature on these that you'll see is this kind of angled chamfer off the top line, which forms kind of an arrow look. It gives that putter its fast look, but it also is a great alignment cue for all the putters, the 5, 7, 9, and 11, to help the golfer line up a little better. The other aspect that he really wanted to bring into a couple of these new designs is to have a solid crown. So if you look at the previous Phantom X line, all of them had pretty distinct top line to them, kind of like a blade design. Mm-hmm. We had a lot of tour players that gave us input wanting a line to go from the face all the way to the back. And so one of the first things he brought into my office was a Phantom X7, where he had welded a plate to the top to create a crown, a solid crown going to face to back. And so that was kind of the impetus to both the number 9 that I have here in my hand and the number 11 to get that real estate going from face all the way to the back, get that long alignment lines on both of those putters to work well with the arrow type feature to make these super easy to line up.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see how far that those kind of alignment features have come in the industry as a whole, whether you're talking about the golf ball, you're talking about the top of a putter. It seems like there's so much more kind of science and data behind having a, you know, well-executed alignment aid for golfers to line up, and you can certainly see that on the Phantom 2024 models. Another piece I want to talk about too was the kind of this dual milled face technology. And so, you know, I think we have probably a combination of, sort of hardcore, really gearhead type golfers watching this, and also probably some people that might just be tuning in, maybe looking for a new putter, not super dialed in at that point. So what would, I guess, if to both of those categories of golfers, how would you describe the dual milled face technology?
Well, the dual mill, any sort of face milling on a all mill putter is a way you can tune sound and feel. So if you have like a soft mill that has just really light machine marks, that'll be louder, give you more audio feedback than something with, say, a deep mill, which has really deep grooves on the top of the putter. And we've had putters like that from soft mill, mid mill, which our previous Phantom line had, deep mill, which some of the older Select models had, to give a really different sound and feel. So this one is a dual mill, which is the best of both a deep mill. So we start with a deep mill, and sometimes that can be pretty rough, and then do a nice cleanup pass. So you get the benefit of a deep mill sound, but the consistency of kind of a mid mill, soft mill on top of that to really give you the right amount of audio feedback and consistent feedback during impact.
Yeah, it's because it's that feel and sound is such a kind of a finicky thing for some people. So I know that's kind of part of this is trying to please as many of those golfers as possible. And clearly there's some technology and design components that are kind of aimed at doing that for sure. So and then speaking on that too, we talked about that's kind of the construction part of it, and also the materials too. I know the Phantom 2024 putters are unique in that aspect as well. So can you maybe shed some light on some of the materials? I know there's a couple materials for sure that are important in these putters.
Yeah, there's two main materials. So there's 303 stainless steel, which the body and the face is made out of. But because we're making larger footprint mallets, if you were to make it all out of steel, it'd be way too heavy. And so that's where we bring in our 6061 aircraft aluminum, which on this putter, it's in black here, to be able to lighten up that center part, the sole part, to be able to distribute that weight in the perimeter of these putters to get the MOI or forgiveness up, while still having kind of a rich metal look of the whole putter. And so when you bring in kind of the construction of it, that's when you got to be really cognizant of how these parts go together, because you can put them together in such a way that that putter will sound very bad, very inconsistent. So we spent a lot of time looking at not only how we use the aluminum, but the thicknesses of the aluminum, how the parts are screwed together, putting damping materials in between the steel and the aluminum to get them to sound really, really good as an individual putter. We spent a lot of time looking at, as you go from the 5, 7, 9, 11, to make sure that sound is consistent, because we have a lot of tour players, a lot of consumers that I like the look of a 5 and a 7, but then I'm having a little more trouble with my alignment. I want something that gives me a little bit more of an alignment benefit, so I want to move to the 9 and the 11. We want to make sure that those putters sound consistent. And so we spent a lot of time looking at how these parts go together and tuning those sounds.
Yeah, it's and having tested, those putters myself, and I've got the 11 model here, again, like we talked about the alignment aids, and you talked about kind of how these materials kind of combine together there. Done a magnificent job of making it look great for one, but then also in the testing too, that feel and sound component is very much tuned into an extremely high level there. So I'll give you the credit for that. And then I know one of the key components, we talked at the PGA show earlier this year about how this line of putters will have a new grip. So we need to make sure we get that discussion in here, and what these grips, what's different about them compared to maybe past models or past, I guess, the standard grips that would come with the Phantom series in the past, and what's different with this one now that golfers will get the benefit from.
Yeah, so the previous Phantom line had our Pistolero Plus, which was kind of Scotty's version of his Pistolini grip, a pistol grip, but with more of a flare, more of basically a paddle feature on it was a thicker up at the top. Scotty loves that grip personally. That's the one he always puts on his putters. But I wanted to bring something more that's more of a paddle style grip. And so we had a grip years ago called a baby T grip, still widely used on tour, but it was more of a paddle style grip. So it had like a wider front, flatter front on it. But by today's standards, that's still a pretty slim grip. And so when I talked to Scotty about my ideas for what to do with this grip, he loved that idea. That was a very popular grip, still popular in the gallery for the custom shop. And so made it a little larger style grip, a little more parallel sides like you see on a lot of the modern grips out there, but still has that Scotty Cameron pistol look. It's got the pistol kick on the upper part of the grip, but really looked at the dimension of this and looked at how we made the thickness of it from top to bottom, side to side, so that it fits the hands really comfortably. And that's why we call this grip the full contact grip. We had Danielle Kang, who snuck one out early and used it all last season. And she commented how it just fits so well in her hands. She doesn't have these gaps. And so I think that really helps her to really control the pressure in her putting grip to keep a nice, even, consistent pressure to make a smoother stroke. And so that was the idea behind this. Specific for mallet type putters, you want kind of a larger style grip, get your hands on there with a light touch, but have a lot of contact so it stays in your hands.
Yeah, and on that note, Austie, I kind of have a sort of follow-up question, because I think we talk so much about putter technology, putter design, you know, the club head, so, a lot more so than really any other component of a putter. But I guess, what is the importance of having a good, proper putter grip for a golfer? You mentioned a little bit of it with Danielle Kang and just how she felt like there wasn't any gaps in the grip. What kind of advantage does that give a player when they're out on the golf course?
I think one of the things Scotty really told me early on, was he really wants the style of the head to match the grip. And so I think someone who likes to look at a blade style putter, we pair that with our Pistolini grip, someone that has it a little more in the fingers, use a little more of the hands in the stroke. And so when you go into a mallet style putter, having a larger grip, they really want to go to that mallet style putter to simplify everything, have kind of a big motion, shoulder turn. So you want to keep the hands kind of quiet. And a larger grip kind of helps keep the hands quiet out there. And so that's why we decided to put this paddle style grip on there. So those players out on the course using that larger grip, I think it'll help simplify their strokes, take the hands out of it, employ the larger muscles, just to make their stroke more consistent.
Yeah, definitely. It's again, it's even something that I would admit myself. I don't really think too much about the grip aspect. It's more about what the putter head does. And then you talk more about kind of like toe flow and other elements of putters. But there's, again, this grip element that you guys clearly have put a focus on, kind of offering something new and more comfortable for players. And I mean, again, having tested these a little bit myself, I think I agree with what Danielle Kang was saying. It just has a certain comfortability that maybe past grips didn't. And so with that said, I kind of wanted to actually, now that we've talked about some of the tech that's involved in each model, dive into the various models available in the 2024 Phantom Series. So I know there's various head styles, there's different neck styles as well. So I kind of, if you would just run through each model, kind of briefly explain some of the features to it. And then, and also of note, our viewers here can throw some questions or comments in there in the chat as well. So we can kind of get some feedback from them. And then again, of course, get your insight on each of these models. Sure.
So the first one I'll talk about is the Phantom 5. This is one of our most popular models that we've had in the Phantom X line. It's a pretty simple shape. One of the things we've done on this new 5 that's different than the previous 5 is we've simplified the profile a little bit. The previous one had kind of 3 facets on the side. This one has 2. Simplify that shape. It's a little smaller in the profile, and I think that's something that's been really attractive to those tour players like Cam Young and Justin Thomas, who have already put this model in play, is they love that look, that little more compact look of this design. And then it's just highlighted with, there's no big tracer lines on it, but just the simple 3-dot alignment to show them where the center of the putter is. And this one, like our previous Phantom X line, has just the single top line on top. And what we find is those players that are migrating from a blade into a mallet putter, it's that familiar look of that top line that they may use to align kind of more of that perpendicular feature on the putter to the target line versus the parallel. So that's the Phantom 5, kind of a simple mallet with just an indication where to put the ball. Next model is the Phantom 7. And so this is kind of that traditional Fang style design. What we've done on this one differently for the previous 7, we've elongated the fangs to get a little more perimeter weighting on there, to make them a little longer, a little more real estate for those tracer lines that put on there, that the players that want that kind of perpendicular alignment with the parallel alignment. We found a lot of players like to use those tracer lines to align their body to the putter as well as the putter to the target line. So it's kind of a dual purpose there. And then the other thing we do is move the sight lines that were in the aluminum in the previous model up onto the steel to get a little more steel in the toe and heel to boost the inertia a little bit. And then it's got the simple 3-dot alignment on top for this one. Moving on to the Phantom 9. This is a brand new design for Scotty Cameron. It's been a while since we've had these kind of peekaboo holes through the head. And this one, Scotty came specifically and said, hey, I want a putter that has these kind of, he called them peekaboos through the head. And it still incorporates that kind of arrow type alignment on it like the 5 and the 7 did. This one has, like I talked before, that solid crown, so you can have the alignment going face to back. But those peekaboo holes allows us to keep this as a pretty compact shape, similar to the Phantom 7 in terms of its silhouette. But being able to put those holes, you get more weight into the perimeter of this design to get the inertia up in kind of a compact shape. This is available in both a mid-bend shaft and a jet neck to give a little more toe flow, as is the 5 and the 7. And then finally, one that's launching this week into the market is the Phantom 11. This is the flagship model. It is the highest inertia, most forgiving. It also has the most overt alignment on it. And so what we did on this one, as opposed to the 9, which you saw had those dual lines that went from face to back, we decided to bring in an arrow type alignment feature that Scotty was inspired by, and he was playing golf with a buddy of his who had one of the old holiday putters that had an arrow type feature on this. And as we were designing these, he took a picture of it, sent it to me, and goes, this is what we should do on the Phantom 11. And so we've modified it a little bit, made it look a little less decorative, a little more instructional, and work really well with those angled chamfers to really highlight that arrow feature, make this super easy to align. And then this one's designed with these wings on it. And when you turn it over, we've designed it almost like a weighted wing on the bottom. And that's there to kind of get that weight rearward at the toe and heel to get the inertia up. But it's angled in such a way to make sure that the center of gravity doesn't get too deep. As you start chasing inertia in putters, which a lot of manufacturers do, you got to be careful that the center of gravity doesn't get too deep, because it starts working against you, makes it harder to release. And so we wanted to make sure that this was forgiving, yet had a CG depth that was easy for this thing to release as well. And it also looks really cool on there as well.
It definitely looks cool. I will definitely kind of vouch for that take, having toyed around with it myself. You mentioned a little bit about sort of the different neck styles and the different kind of, I guess, toe flow to elements to these putters. So can you kind of just go over to, because there's 5, there's 5.5, so kind of going through what the toe flow does for golfers. I know it's somewhat related to kind of the stroke type or maybe the way a golfer might swing the putter, but can you just kind of give us the basic backgrounds on what toe flow really is, and I guess maybe what golfers should be using those types of putters?
Well, I think what that hosel does is it moves that shaft axis, the position of the shaft axis. So if it's more face balanced like our 5, 7, 9, 11 are, it's going to be more in line with the center of gravity. And as you start moving that shaft more heelward, like you will on a 0.5 model, The head kind of will move further away from the golfer, so it helps get the eyes inside the ball a little bit. So that's one thing where a lot of golfers, some golfers will see the line better if their eyes are right over the ball. A lot of tour players see the line better when their eyes are a little inside. So kind of our Newport 2 with our plumbing neck gets the eyes inside a little bit, and the 0.5 necks do the same thing. They also will move that center of gravity further from the shaft axis. So as they rotate it, they're going to be able to have a little bit more face awareness. So if you're the type of player that really uses the hands to kind of sense where that face is, having a 0.5 neck will kind of give them a little more face awareness as through their stroke. It'll also help kind of balance their motion with what they're feeling, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that definitely is a good explainer. It's actually a different perspective than I've heard the most from most, putter designers in terms of what that stuff means. But it's a good perspective there in terms of, because I haven't really heard this aspect of seeing the line better from, I guess, inside. But if you're talking about tour players, clearly they kind of have a good idea of what they like to look at and what works for them at the highest level possible. I wanted to make one quick note. We have someone in the chat named Bruce who said he's getting his 9.5 model on Friday. So we just talked about the design into that one. That's certainly, it's kind of have those holes in the back of it too. So clearly something's going right with that design in the new Phantom series here. And then moving into these long models, you have your 11 long. And then we have another one here too that we'll bring up in a second. But the 11 long model, new this week. There's this trend kind of going on here with tour golf and players using longer putters. Added some weight there. Between you and Scotty and the team there, what was that process like of bringing a long model kind of to the golf space at mass, right? Where it wasn't just kind of for the specialty tour player. Getting something out there where any golfer could benefit from it.
Right. Well, it's kind of bringing it back, if you will, because
Yeah,
I think when the USGA banned anchoring, a lot of companies went to arm lock style putters and went to kind of counterbalance style putters. Scotty Cameron had one called the dual balance, which at the time it was using a kind of a belly or mid putter type head, which is about 400 grams on a shorter shaft with about 38 inches, 39 inches. And then to counterbalance that heavier head, Scotty put a 50-gram weight in the butt end of the grip and then a longer 17 inch grip on there as well. I think when those initially came out, I think those players that were a little twitchy wanted to take the hands out of it and use weight to take the hands out of it. On shorter putts, they work great, but I think they found quickly, especially tour players who are very sensitive, on longer putts, it's harder to control distance. So we saw in the market and on tour, those went lighter pretty quickly. And so you saw heads migrate from 400 grams down to 375, 380 grams. And then the counterbalance is going from 50 grams down to 20, 10, or even just using the grip as a heavier grip. And so that's what you're seeing today. We had a few players, some players that a lot of other tour players look to as that are good putters that kind of went to this design. So it got it hot on tour again. And so we were getting requests from tour players for this type of setup. And so as soon as that happened, we said, well, we've got to bring it to market. And that's where the Fan of 11 came from, and that's why it's in our line.
Yeah, it's clearly something that, as someone who has definitely experimented with that kind of longer added weight, counterbalance style, I'm really excited about the 11 as a possibility. And I know our fitters have already made some great comments to me about just the general interest. A golfer goes into the kind of our putter fitting bay, they see a longer, now faster looking, right, Phantom model, and it already catches their eye, and they get that thing in their hands with this new grip, and it's a completely different feel, but at the same time, it also incorporates a lot of things that have already been successful in some of these past Phantom lineups. So there's, again, a ton of interest there. And then while we're on the topic of these longer putters too, we should also bring up, right, the Squareback 2 long one I've got here. So another kind of, addition to these long offerings. what sparked this new offering from Titleist there, going to, something smaller, obviously, and a different neck type as well. So what's kind of behind that one?
Well, I think that as we were developing these long putters for the Phantom line, we chose the Phantom 11 because it's got the largest footprint. And that would pair well, I think, with that longer length of the putter, kind of the longer grip. The proportions all looked right. I think if you had like a big grip with a small head, the proportions wouldn't look right, and I think it may make golfers a little uncomfortable. And so when we were choosing what other model to put in, we immediately went to the Squareback 2 because it's our largest blade that we have offered.
Sure.
And we didn't see a lot of competitors look to that. We have a lot of players on the LPGA Tour that were using this Squareback 2 in a longer design. They weren't going 38 inches, but they were going 36 inches. But the setup was similar, having a heavier head, a little bit longer than shaft that they would usually use, and then a longer grip. And so we decided the Squareback 2 would be a great offering to put into the Super Select line to kind of complement what we're doing on the Phantom line. And so the Super Select, what we did is put two 25-gram tungsten weights in here to get that head weight up to 375, which on a blade, traditionally our blades are a little lighter than our mallets are. And so the Phantom has two 25-gram tungsten weights, bringing it up to 380 grams, and then 136 grams, 17-inch grip to kind of counterbalance that extra weight. And one of the things we had to do for both of these designs is look at the shaft, because you can't add that extra weight without considering the shaft. And so we had to go to our shaft supplier and basically re-engineer the shaft to make it a little heavier and a little stiffer to complement that extra weight in the head.
Wow. Yeah, it's just fascinating to hear how the different adjustments that need to be made to make, the weighting of the putter work. Because you can't just make the putter heavier and make it longer and then it works, right? There's all these different kind of components that go into it. But the end result is something that clearly works for, like you mentioned, a lot of the LPGA Tour players are working with something like this already. And on that note, too, kind of, I have just a curiosity about the tour adoption process. And granted, it's still relatively fresh for you guys, the Phantom 2024 line. But have you done any tour adoption with this series yet? And is there a model or particular setups maybe that are a lot of tour players tend to gravitate to, or is it just is it pretty even across the board? How do these models? How are they received among the tour players, both PGA Tour, LPGA Tour, wherever they're playing across the globe?
Yeah, they've been greatly accepted. I think it's been refreshing to us with all the work that we put in to kind of dialing the look and the sound and the feel, that we've heard those comments echoed back from all the tour players that have tried this. And I think we've had adoption of all the models across the board on tour in some respect or the other. So both the 11, the 9, the 5, and the 7 have all been and are in play on tour. I think we've seen a little more of our marquee players gravitate towards the 5. And so it was great to see, Cam Young put a Phantom 5 in play when he was using the Phantom X line. Justin Thomas was using almost 2 generations ago a Phantom 5.5. He put the new shape in play. As I said earlier, he loved the compact look, how it swung. And once we dialed his sound and feel in, he likes a little louder sound in his. And so we had to do some things to kind of dial it in, but it was easy to dial in for him. And we got something that he really likes, and he's been playing it for a few months now. And then we had another marquee player put a 5.5 play in play and won on another competing tour. And that was great to see as well, that he was a traditional blade user that went into a more of a mallet style putter. So we've seen adoption from a lot of different aspects of this new line, and it's exciting.
Yeah, it's fascinating that you brought up someone who is kind of a traditional blade player going to a mallet, because we actually got a question about that exact thing submitted via Twitter. We kind of teased our live yesterday, right? We got a couple questions that were submitted, and one of them was from Xavier saying, I've used a Newport 2 putter for years, generally have not had any problems, but is interested in potentially upgrading to one of the Phantom models. So what's the transition like going from a blade to one of these Phantom models if I choose to upgrade, is the question from Xavier.
Well, I think if he's a traditional kind of Newport 2 type player, either going to a Phantom 5 or 5.5, I think is a great transition because those have kind of equally clean looks as a Newport 2. You've got the alignment indication with the triple dots, but it's got that top line that's going to seem very familiar to him going from a Newport 2. So I would recommend trying a 5, or if he wants a little more face awareness like he's having with his Newport 2, the 5.5 would be a great choice.
Yeah, it seems like the kind of the 5 and 5.5 are just, if you are maybe a blade player and you maybe just want a little bit more forgiveness or, kind of a more stability, is that kind of where you would start really any player that's transitioning from a blade type putter?
Yeah, either the 5s family or the 7 family as well, that has that distinct top line. So either one of them work well. I think if it was a player that wants more of a cleaner look, the 5 would be better. The 7 kind of brings those other tracer alignment lines on there. So if they need a little more alignment help, if they're feeling like their start lines are not where he wants them to be or they want them to be, you may want to go to a 7 to get a little more help with alignment to get that face pointed at the target and then bringing it back to square.
Sure, yeah. Well, Austie, we are kind of getting up on time here, so I do want to thank you. Before we get to this last question that we have here, I do want to thank you for your time. And, as I've mentioned at the beginning, and I'm going to mention it again now for the viewers, whether you're watching it live right now or you're watching it, at a later time when this is uploaded on our YouTube channel, you can schedule a putter fitting at Second Swing. We can dial you in. Any of our master fitters can dial you in for one of the Phantom 2024 models, and you'll probably see some increased performance in putting, making some more putts, and you can probably thank Austie for that as well. So this last question here from Jared, saying, if I wanted to upgrade from my Phantom X7 model, which of these would you recommend for the easiest change? Is that just going into the 7 of the 2024, or would you recommend something else?
I would recommend going to the 2024 Phantom 7. And so what he'll find in that is, a little more length to those tracer lines on there, a little better inertia, so a little more forgiveness, and a little softer feel. So if he's looking for kind of a softer feel than he's had in the Phantom X, you're going to get that in the in the new Phantom X, and maybe a little more consistent sound as well.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. I think because there's clearly some interest here in the Phantom 2024 putters. We're kind of quick on time or short on time. I know I wanted to, let you guys, it's a busy time for you guys at Titleist and Scotty Cameron. So I wanted to let you guys kind of get on with your day. But Austie, thank you so much for taking the time. And I'll remind viewers again, if you have a comment or a question that we didn't get to or you want an answer from, leave it in the comments below. And we can actually send them to the team here at Titleist and Austie, and they'll get back to you with an answer. But once again, Austie, this has been great. And again, all of us here at Second Swing we're so excited about the Phantom 2024 putters, and it's already been great in the fittings. So thank you for your time. We really appreciate it, and it's been great.
Thank you. Thanks for the time, and thank you for letting me talk about these great new putters. Thank you.